police officer and recent member that I can remember, Brother Boone, that actually went to prison for doing horrible things to black and brown people. So that's the power we have when we decide that we are not going to allow it to happen anymore. We simply have to stand up for our children. And we got to stand up, we got to speak up, and we got to fight like hell for our children, because if we don't do it, nobody else is going to do it for us.
Good afternoon. I'm Congressman Gregory Meeks from New York and chair of the Congressional Black Caucus's Political Action Committee. And we're out here today as the Political Action Committee to talk about what I believe is a sad day for America, when we have a presidential candidate who has utilized a birther issue against the first African-American president. And he's been consistent and persistent about whether or not this president was a citizen of the United States. He's been doing this for over 8 years. And then, as he continues to do, he continues to con the American people. He's a con artist, and he conned the press today. He had told the press that he was going to come and make a statement about his position in regards to the birther incident. And then he comes out, and for over the first 8 minutes of it, just promoting his hotel. Promoting his hotel for his business interests. And then he brings forward individuals who we all thank them for their being heroes and fighting and defending this country. And they have the right, because this is the greatest country that this planet has ever seen, they have a right to choose whatever candidate they want. But he used them basically to be part of his con to the American people. So what he did then, at the very end, is just say that another lie, an out lie, which he's got to be called on, because this is not the first time he has lied. He continues to lie. So to lie and say that the birther movement was started by Hillary Clinton and he was finishing it, and that he was born in America and then walk off, has got to stop. He's lied and he's divided this country enough. He lied about Muslims, saying that he saw thousands of them when the World Trade Center went down. He's lied. He's lied about Mexicans. He's lied about women. And members of the Congressional Black Caucus's PAC are not going to take it anymore. This is ridiculous. And if he thinks that African Americans fought, because I believe that this should be an insult to all Americans, to every one of us. This should not continue to happen. So we felt that it was important that the members of the Congressional Black Caucus come out and let everyone know where we stand and what we feel about it. So with that, I'd like to bring up the chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus. As I said, I want to be clear on this. I'm chairman of the PAC. This has nothing to do with anything else but the PAC. But we have a person who's a member of the board of the PAC, who is the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. Nothing to do with the foundation, but chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, from the gentleman from North Carolina, G.K. Butterfield.
Thank you, Congressman Meeks, and let me thank all of you from the press for responding so quickly. This was breaking news about 90 minutes ago, and we sent out the invitation, and you have responded, so thank you very much. I am indeed the chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus, but I come to you today in my capacity as a member of the board of the Congressional Black Caucus Political Action Committee. This is a disgusting day. Donald Trump is a disgusting fraud. By any definition, Donald Trump is a disgusting fraud. He started this silliness years ago by saying that President Obama is not an American citizen. He had no proof of it. And so he started this disgusting behavior 7 or 8 years ago, questioning the president's citizenship. He would not have done that to a Mitt Romney. He would not have done that to a John McCain or any other white who was running for president of the United States, but he has leveled this criticism against President Obama. And so he has now been told by his advisors that he's not going to win the presidency unless he can reach out to African-American voters. His numbers are in the single digits, and they will remain in the single digits. But his advisors are telling him that unless he reaches out to African-American voters, he will lose this election. So instead of being the statesman that he should be, instead of going before the cameras today and apologizing to President Obama and apologizing to the American people for his fraudulent behavior, he simply comes to the microphone, and I will quote what he said. He said, quote, President Obama was born in the United States, period. And then he takes his seat and then gives a guided tour of the Trump Hotel to the news media that was assembled. That is disgusting. The Congressional Black Caucus Political Action Committee finds it disgusting. Every American needs to understand that this man is a fraud. He is an insult to the intellect of the American people. We must defeat him in November.
Let me thank all of you for being here. You know, I have been doing a lot of thinking recently about where we are as a country, where we have been as a country, and what we can expect in the future as a country. And one of the things that we're all used to in this business is dog whistles. But the thing that we're not used to, and I'm finding it very difficult to getting used to, are the howls of wolves. These are howls. These are not whistles. These are in-your-face kinds of efforts on the part of one man who is utilizing, I should say misusing, the media in order to heap indignities upon the President of these United States. This is not just about a contest for the presidency. This man is on a mission to heap as much insult on this president, to do as much as he possibly can to delegitimize his presidency, and to play into a narrative that has been floated in this country for over 200 years. A narrative that he is very much a part of trying to fulfill by delegitimizing this president. And I think that the American people, and hopefully the media, and I used to be a part of the media, and I know how media can be misused. And I would hope that our media will begin to focus on informing the American people rather than to regurgitate what this man has to say about anything. And so this is very, very serious, because as I said to a lot of people, we will look back on November 9th and we may find ourselves, because of what we could have done and did not do, regretting that we failed to do so. So let's not give ourselves any chance of being regrettable or regretful. Let's do what is necessary now to expose this man for the fraud that he really is. Thank you.
Just say a couple of things. First of all, Donald Trump's presidential campaign has been based on the birther movement, which he founded. Make no mistake, he founded the birther movement, and that catapulted into his campaign for the presidency. Secondly, as we learned, as we knew, but as we heard today, Donald Trump lies. Can we afford a president who lies to develop our agenda as it relates to national security, as it relates to our domestic agenda here in our own country? I don't think so. The world has got to be able to trust somebody in that White House, not someone who continues to lie over and over and over again. Thirdly, this campaign, unfortunately, we have seen what the birther movement really means, unfortunately, and that is to delegitimize our first African American president. And it's not working. It's not working. But I think that this is a moment, it's a defining moment for all of those who want to denounce bigotry and racism to step forward now and to really demand first that Donald Trump stop it, but secondly, to demand an apology from this man, because this is what his presidential campaign has been about. So our work now should be about unifying the country and moving forward with a referendum on bigotry. And I think the rest of the country will understand that that's the moment we're in and begin to really see him for the fraud that he is. Thank you again.
From New York, I'm Jeffrey. Represent the 8th Congressional District in New York. I'm proud to serve as the bigotry and hatred. He is someone who from the outset of his career has practiced indiscrimination. From his time running the Trump Corporation in the 1970s, discriminating against African Americans and Latinos in housing, labeling their application with a C so they would be set aside and excluded. From his effort in the 1980s where he led the lynch mob against the Central Park Five, 4 African American men and 1 Latino who were wrongfully convicted, but Donald Trump wanted to send them to the death penalty. And then, of course, his effort to lead the birther movement, which is nothing more than a fraud designed to appeal to the racists and the bigots and the xenophobes who wanted to delegitimize the first black president of the United States of America. If you question Donald Trump's true motive, Exhibit A really is his leadership in the birther movement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Many of us serve on committees, senior member of the Judiciary Committee and the ranking member on the Criminal Justice Committee. Here in my capacity as a supporter and member of the Congressional Black Caucus PAC. Thank you for your leadership. It is important to note that African Americans has had a unique and special journey in the United States of America. We have been enslaved. We have suffered Jim Crowism. We have seen the segregated South living as second-class citizens. But yet the men and women who are African Americans have risen to serve in the United States military. We have sacrificed as first responders across America. We died on 9/11, and we have accepted our full privileges, although we have shed blood for it, for citizenship. And I joined the PAC by saying on behalf of African Americans across America, we've had enough and we're not going to take it anymore. We will not elect a chief bigot of the United States of America. To Mr. Trump, who has debased the presidential contest like no other contest in the history of the United States of America. There has never been the lowest level of electioneering that Mr. Trump has engaged in. Why do I say this? Because he could have ended this in a calm and respectful manner after he started these lies yesterday at the Washington Post. There were no lights or cameras. It was a simple interview. He was asked the question whether or not the president was an American citizen born in the United States. He could have taken the quiet time to apologize and to indicate, as a candidate for the presidency of the United States, I respect all former presidents and existing presidents as my duty, and I will indicate what the truth is. But Mr. Trump could not bring himself to do so because he has lived a life of bigotry. And so this is our calling to African Americans and the diversity of America, women included, Hispanics, Asians, and others, religious diversity as well, that if you view America as a land of value and equality and justice, this man cannot be elected. We as African Americans have had enough. He has debased this election, but more importantly, he has disgraced himself in his lack of respect for the President of the United States of America. So I would simply end my words by saying, debasing, misrepresenting, and lying were a crime. I would offer to say to you that Mr. Trump could not continue to run for the presidency of the United States because he has committed a crime against the United States and the American people. And he has brought down this dignified place of respect. And that is when two candidates offer themselves in service, whether you agree with them or not, whether you vote for them or not. You know that they have the ultimate goodness of America in their hearts and minds. Today I pronounce that that place of honor remains only in one candidate, for Mr. Trump has given up his right to have any respect for running as President of the United States of America. He is now unfit.
From New York, the Dean, founder of the Congressional Black Caucus, Charles B. Rankin.
Yeah.
This issue is bigger than the politicians, the election, and the press. We're really talking about the survival of the United States of America. No one can challenge that when Donald Trump put out the word that he has reason to believe that this black president was not a citizen, that he knew at the time that he was. But when America woke up and found out that Barack Obama was elected, some Republican leaders said, our first job is to make certain he's not reelected. That's political. But there are some people that crawled from under a rock and said, what can we do to make certain that we can destroy this man, not 4 years from now, but now? And what they did was to say, we're going to send the signal out that he's not a citizen to remind Americans to know that his father and his ancestors were from Africa, reminding them that in their minds you have to be a European American in order to become president. What I say is bigger than today and the election. There are other people that are affected by this other than African American. There are a lot of people in this country that are not European background. And somebody somewhere will be plotting to say, no matter where they're from, they're not entitled to aspire to become president without going through what we're going through now. And so I conclude by saying, if you're teaching history in the lower grades or a scholar in the university, if you're a Catholic or a Protestant or a Hindu or Muslim or Jewish, if you love this country, it's no telling where you are on this list. It's not a black question. It's an American question. And so let me thank those of us who are immediately affected because of our backgrounds to say that I do hope this is not reported as a black issue. It should be an American issue. Thank you.
From New Jersey.
Here with us, and I want to thank you all for covering this. I wanted to say something in response to what Representative Sheila Jackson Lee said. Why Trump didn't answer that question when he was interviewed by the Post was because he needed people to come to the opening of his hotel. Because for Trump, it's only about his business, it's only about what is good for him. So we know from what we've experienced that Trump has acted in a way that suggests he's a bigot. We know that he's acted in a way that suggests that he's an out-and-out liar. And we know that he has presented himself in a way with lack of knowledge and a really strong question as to whether or not he has either the temperament or the intellect to carry on as the President of the United States of America. So to paraphrase Maya Angelou, Queen, when she says, if someone presents himself to you the first time, believe it. He cannot continue to walk back from the mistakes that he made the first time, and that's treated as a legitimate action. It is not. He doesn't believe the things he's forced to say now in order to curry favor with people who are never going to support him. And so we stand here because we want our communities, not just our black community, women, gays and lesbians, and Latinos and Muslims and everyone else to understand there is an urgency associated with what we're going to do this November, and that we need to get about doing it, because the worst thing that can happen to the future of the United States of America is to kill it in its tracks with this person as president. Thank you.
U.S. Virgin Islands?
That to have a Donald Trump presidency will take us back in terms of any civil human rights that we have, and will create a situation in this country where we are less safe than we've ever been. So we need to be selfishly looking at who he is and what he is doing as human beings, period. But particularly as people of color, because he has no respect for us. He has no respect for our working class. He has no respect for women. He has no respect for anyone. And his motivation will always be to advance Donald Trump, never this country.
But millennials are worried about voting and whether or not we have the right person in place. What do we say to some of those children who are Bernie followers?
We say to the millennials that the issues that Bernie raised and the issues that he and Clinton agreed upon are very important to our future. If Donald Trump is elected, we'll never see any of those values translated into action or translated into legislation or policy. They've got to understand, just, you know what, we don't always have to like or love who we vote for, but look at the history of Hillary Clinton, that they should know, because they're the most educated group of young people in our generations. Recognize what she did from the first time she graduated from college, where she worked, what she dedicated her life to. Check her out as a teenager who would go and give up her time to take care of the children of migrant workers so they could go to work. There's a difference. She has a record, and all he has is rhetoric. And even his rhetoric speaks to ignorance and bigotry.
Thank you so much. I know you're going. Thank you. Would you talk to us about voters' rights and what's going on across the country?
Well, I'll tell you what's going on across the country. I think was reported this morning by Reuters. Reuters news agency is reporting that the state of Georgia, for instance, is collapsing precincts. Where they had 5 precincts, they're turning them into 2, and the face they put on them was an 87-year-old gentleman who would always walk to vote. Under this new procedure, he'll have to go 2 miles to vote. He doesn't drive. He's not going to walk 2 miles, and that is not just an isolated case. They named other counties in Georgia where that's going on. We just saw in Ohio that they've gotten rid of what they call their golden week or something that has been used for people to vote early who may have transportation problems. So what's going on in this country is what has gone on in this country before, and that's taking away an effective vote. It's one thing to have the right to vote. It's something else to have the means by which to cast their ballot. And so I'm telling people not to keep cursing the darkness, but let's light some candles. And the way to do that, I've already met with several bishops, getting them or pleading with them to get their churches involved. I want every African-American church in this country to adopt a precinct. You know, my father was a minister, so I want you to preach about people's souls, but let's also preach a little bit or make sure that these people have bodies for these souls to develop here. And what we're having now, there's a real problem with people maintaining the right to vote and, quite frankly, preserving this democracy. This democracy is really at threat. And if you don't believe so, just look at our history. Thank you.
I'm telling you, this has been really a serious issue about Trump, but also serious issues about incarceration. I know you're out in New York and all the things that are going on. How do we deal with these prison industrial complexes, and what should we be doing in our communities thinking about our local communities?
Well, you know what? I think that Hillary Clinton has talked about how we make sure that there is justice within our criminal justice system. The Congressional Black Caucus right now, that's one of our #1 issues. They are looking to reform the criminal justice system. And it is difficult to do when you have a Republican House that is trying to block everything that we would like to accomplish. That's why these elections are so important. I tell anyone the best way for us to make sure that we get our issues resolved, you know, if we were in the majority, John Conyers would be the chair of the Judiciary Committee, and then that would be one of our forefront issues of which he can lead in. And if we have Hillary Clinton, who is on board with us, not like Donald Trump, who to this day has not apologized for trying to execute 5 black boys in New York who were innocent. He's never apologized. Had he had his way, they would be dead today and not alive and exonerated. So that's why it is important that we run to the polls on November 8th and make sure that we elect Hillary Clinton president, but go on down so that we can then take control of a lot of the committees that will lead the charge for the issues that are important to us, like criminal justice and the judiciary.
Inspiration. Thank you.
Can you talk to us about what you've seen so far today? We've been through a lot of the workshops and going in and out. What are you thinking about today?
I just came from a workshop on historically black colleges and universities, which was very dynamic. 3 of the panelists were current college presidents. I, of course, am a former college president, and the television star Terrence J., who is a North Carolina A&T State University alum, was also there. Congresswoman Alma Adams pulled the group together to really look at some of the things that need to happen so that we can sustain our HBCUs. It was a really dynamic panel, and it was a full house. And this is what becomes powerful about this Congressional Black Caucus and its gatherings, is when you get a full house of people with dynamic questions and people are very concerned about the HBCU issue, including people I know from New Orleans, with Maryland, people come from Morgan stood up, from Bowie stood up to talk about some of their concerns.
And we have a lot of them.
And also a lot of concerns, because some of the things like duplication of programs where the white colleges really try to compete directly with the HBCUs in attempts to undermine them. And all of the HBCUs are facing issues of funding, whether they are state colleges, in other words, whether they're public and they get a state appropriation, or they're private and don't get one, such as Bennett College, where I'm president emerita. Whether in either case, our black community has to embrace and support our HBCUs. Don't tell us after the fact that you're sorry that we closed. Don't tell us after the fact that your daughter or son didn't get enough of a scholarship. We can't do anything unless we have your support.
Thank you so much. And that's our charge, and that's how we need to go forward. Thank you, Dr. Nelson.
Thank you.
I'm 100%. I'm there. Whatever y'all need from me. Equity and parity. All right, I'm there. Whatever y'all need. Okay. All right.
Hi, I'm here with Congressman
Let me get out of this way.
Elijah Cummings.
Hey, Doc. All right.
And he is here at the Congressional Black Caucus. Congressman, what is our charge? There's a lot going on here this weekend.
The charge, first of all, is informing people that we have a lot of challenges and that this is a critical moment in our history. We can either go forward or we can go back to a time that Donald Trump talks about, where I think African American people's rights will be lessened.
What does that mean?
What I mean by that is Donald Trump has made it clear that he wants to appoint Supreme Court justices that will turn back the hands of time for African American people. And what that means is that things like voting rights taken away. If our voting rights are taken away, it's impossible for us to control our destiny. And we can literally go to a time where possibly as much as a fifth of the black electorate will not be in a position to vote. That's a major problem. So I tell people, no matter what, no matter how much you may like Donald Trump's hair, or may like what he's saying, or may not like Hillary Clinton, this to me is no choice.
But you say roll back the clock. What does that mean? This is 2016.
Let me give you an example. There was a recent case in North Carolina which had some of the most strongest anti-voting laws that exist. And they're anti-voting against black people. And what the North Carolina legislature did was literally go and they said, okay, we got, say, 2 or 3 weeks of early voting. They actually did the research and found out, they wanted to know, when do the blacks vote? And then once they found out, they eliminated. They wanted to know where they vote. They eliminated those areas. They wanted to know where do they vote in great volume. They reduced the number of voting machines in those areas. I mean, literally, systematically, there were 6 different things they did. When that case got before the Supreme Court, the only reason it was, the circuit judge said, this is horrible. When it got before the Supreme Court, it basically, they upheld the decision of the circuit court, saying that it was horrible, therefore it had to end. But if there had been a Scalia who died, and there had not been an even court and not been a 4-4, that law would be in effect. That's what I'm saying. And what I'm saying is the next president will have the opportunity to probably appoint 2 or 3 members of that court.
So they're changing all those zip codes and all of the districts. What does that mean?
What it means is that people are being systematically, and by the way, it's black people and Hispanics, and people that would normally vote for Democrats. People are being systematically losing their right to vote. That's it. It's simple as that. And it's done intentionally. But again, a court, the backdrop that we've had in the past was the courts. Now you've got a Supreme Court that, with the kind of appointments that Donald Trump's talking about, those kind of appointments will make sure that those problems that I just stated, those kind of laws stay in effect. Okay? That's the problem.
That's huge.
That's huge.
So as a community, every community across this nation, specifically, I know you're talking about Maryland, because you're from Maryland, but you're also concerned about the nation. Give us 3 things we should be doing.
First thing we need to be doing is checking our status with regard to voting. There are a lot of people who are being purged from voter lists. They need to check with their local department that deals with the voting state voting offices. Make sure they're registered. 2, they need to call Lottie Dottie and everybody and make sure that their relatives and friends are voting. As a matter of fact, they can do something as simple as instead of having all that gospel music and all kinds of poetry and stuff, and people, and answering things, remind people.
That's serious.
Seriously, yeah. Remind people that vote November 8th is election day. But the third thing they can do is get involved in campaigns. Hillary Clinton needs a lot of help. Donald Trump is not good for this country. And he has demonized our president, tried to delegitimize him. And it's just not good for us. And so they need to get involved in a campaign for people who have black interests. And by the way, they should not just vote for president. They need to be voting for their city council people, state legislators, if that's, their elections are coming up, all of those kind of things they need to be doing.
Congressman, thank you so much. We really appreciate your leadership, and we need you. Here with you today. Why are you at this event?
I am supporting the White House initiative on African American excellence in education. So I did the panel where we were talking about how do we support teachers and parents and educators and young people that are interested in going into education. So that's my specific reason for being at CBC today.
What do you think we're going to be doing next, or how should we be focused on education? We have a lot of urban communities where children are graduating from high school functionally illiterate. What do you think we should be doing back at home?
Well, I mean, I think at the end of the day, kids graduate from high schools functionally illiterate because communities allow them to. And so I think, one, there is a policy lane where we can address issues of what are kids teaching, what are kids learning, how is it being taught, who are the teachers teaching it. We have to talk about testing and using testing as a metric versus using testing as an excuse. And then there's also that kind of tertiary piece where we need to be figuring out what are the practical things we can be doing to support what's happening in schools. So how can churches be literacy centers? If a kid is doing Bible study, why aren't they learning to read through the Bible versus being taught to memorize verses? How are ways that we can utilize libraries? How can we use civic and social organizations as a way to bolster? We talk about not having community centers, but you have churches that are closed 3 days a week, and we're not using them as volunteer centers, paying the church to use them for 2 hours a night. I just think we have a ton of resources that we don't effectively use, and then we blame other people for not having resources. So I think if we can begin to do that, then we're not simply relying on the school system to have an impact, but as a community, we're challenging school systems to do their job, but simultaneously doing what we need.
What happens to No Child Left Behind? Why isn't that working?
Well, I mean, I think No Child Left Behind was more talk than it was effective policy. And that's why we didn't see President Obama continue it. I mean, Race to the Top, I think, was an attempt to create viable models that we were seeing in local school districts. And during the first part of the administration, I think that was effective. The question is, how are we doing multi-level approaches? Because you're never going to have mass change in local education through the federal government. Most of the funding comes from the state level. Most of the rules and the legislation come from the state level and the municipal level. So if we're not playing there, we've seen the Tea Party over the last 5 years get, I think, over 70 people elected to local school boards. Why aren't we playing that same game? The Republican Party, in many cases, controlling most state houses. We're not preparing African American young people or business people to run for office at the state level where all these rules are being made. So until we play in those spaces, and No Child Left Behind just becomes an antiquated federal initiative when on a daily basis we're getting our behinds kicked by not being more strategic and Well, that becomes a policy issue because there was a time when you could get a college degree, you could get a high school equivalent, and many state legislators put an end to that because there was more money in keeping people incarcerated than there was in providing opportunity. So again, it's a legislative piece. How are we engaging state legislators and attorney generals to talk about? So I think there are some states that are getting it right. I remember there was a time when in New Jersey, you would get a voter registration card with your parole packet because there was a desire to reconnect people, when in some states you got to petition the governor to get your right to vote. So again, I think that there's a legislative piece that we have to do. If we're serious about reentry, then that means education and opportunity, because recidivism is directly connected to opportunity. But if we don't change the policy that says educational programs can't exist within prisons, then we have to create that system outside. And I think at the end of the day, it's not an either-or proposition. I think it's a both-and.
So give me 3 things that we need our communities to do between now and November the 8th.
Between now and November the 8th, I think we need to have a critical conversation about what we have to lose. And I don't just mean with one candidate or another. What do we have to lose if we don't participate? Because I think there's so many voters that are like, well, I don't love Hillary, or I don't like Trump, so I'm just going to stay at home. That's wrong. What do we have to lose by not coming out? I think number two, I think we have to do an education process on down ballot voting. So we need to talk to people about who are prosecutors that are running, who are the judges that are on the ballot, who's running for all of those down ballot positions that frankly on a daily basis impact our lives more than the President of the United States. And then three, I think we need to mobilize people in real ways. Again, this stuff isn't personal. This isn't about how do we feel good. This is about how would we make sure that we get what we need from those that are running for office. So I think we need to ask for certain demands, and I think we need to hold those folks accountable once they're elected.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Do you have a card?
I do.
We need to get you on. Please tell us your name, and we understand you're from Florida. Yes. Now, what is somebody so lovely as you coming in from Florida doing at the Congressional Black Caucus?
Well, first of all, hello. My name is Kiana Nemhard, and I am from Miami Trail City Senior High School, and I came to represent my school with a group called Miami Gardens Junior Council. And we're here to pretty much understand the problems that exist in our community so that we as the youth can fix them and help towards the cause.
So when you say fix them, what made you get on this council?
Well, I was elected to be on the council. I am Miss Miami Trail City, so it feels great to represent my school in such a manner. I'm under the city of Miami Gardens, so they pretty much look to us as a way to communicate effectively with the youth. So it's really cool.
So what have you learned here so far since you've been here?
So we haven't been to any meetings yet or any conferences, but we're looking to meet with Ms. Frederica Wilson to go over those problems.
Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy it. Are you registered to vote? Can you vote yet?
I'm only 17, sadly, but definitely when I'm of age, that's the first thing I'm doing.
You have aspirations to become an actual congressman or senator?
Well, I'm in the law magnet program at school, so possibly that could definitely happen.
Well, if we have more like you, we're going to be in a good place. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, this is Marcia Jews, WEAA 88.9 FM, your source for cool jazz and the voice of the community. We're here at the Congressional Black Caucus and in the exhibit hall with the president, Terry Williams, of the oldest black bank in the country, One United Bank. And they also have created this whole new hashtag and a whole campaign called Bank Black. So let's talk to Dr.
That's okay.
We'll edit that one. Let's talk to Ms. Williams and find out about the banking and what's going on in the banking industry. How are you?
I'm great. And I just want to correct one other thing. We're not the oldest, but we are the biggest black-owned bank.
So, hi, this is Marcia Jews, WEAA 88.9 FM, the voice of the community. And we're here with Terry Williams, the president of One United Bank, the largest black bank in this country. Terry, talk to us about the banking industry and what's going on. You're shaking it up.
Yes, well, we're very excited about the Bank Black Challenge. We're basically asking everyone in our community to open up a $100 savings account in a black-owned bank. It really started with Killer Mike, a rap artist who got on, MTV and BET and said we need to move our money. And it's really part protest, where we're saying, hey, we're not going to, have you take our money for granted. But it's also part progress, where we're saying, hey, we need to do business with each other. We need to bank black, we need to buy black, we need to figure out how we can do business to circulate money in our community more than we are today. Currently, only 2% of our dollars, of our $1.2 trillion in annual spending is actually spent in our community.
Why is that?
Yeah, it's, part of it is that we have a belief, and we have to be sort of honest about this, that their ice is colder and that black businesses aren't as good. And what we're here to say is that, that we need to get over that as a community. That we have, in fact, I would say our ice is colder. We have a bank that has better rates, has lower fees, that has online banking, bill pay, mobile banking, has all the services that other banks have. But even more than that, you can trust us. You can trust that when you walk in the door, when you call us, that we're not going to treat you any differently than we treat our customers. You can also trust that we're going to be more likely to hire black people, to do lending to black people, and to be in the African American community. So when you look at all the things that we are in comparison to other banks, you may ask yourself, why am I not banking black?
Is it that we're thinking that we don't have full services in the black banking system?
I think part of it is a lot of people don't even know that there are black-owned banks. There are 23 black-owned banks across the country. One United is the largest, and you can actually bank with us from wherever you are because we are also the first black internet bank. So you can go online and do all your banking with us online. You can open up an account, you can transfer money, you can do everything. So part of it is just people knowing that there are black-owned banks. And in addition to being the president, I'm actually the owner. So in case any of your listeners or...
Wait a minute. How do you own a bank? How do you own a bank?
Yes. The reality is that most banks are owned by individuals. And so, yes, I do own a bank.
What possessed you to open up a bank? I love this.
Well, it actually started that I invested in a bank. My husband and I actually bought a bank. And it was a small bank in Boston, and then we acquired another one in Miami, and then we acquired two in LA, and we combined them and changed the name to One United, which was what we were doing, is uniting our community.
How does a couple sit down and wake up and say, we're going to buy a bank? I love this.
Yes, well, the reality is banking is business, and just as all businesses have business owners as well as business managers, so do banks. And that's one of the things I think is important for us to understand as a community. It's like, what is the role of a bank? The role of a bank is to take your deposits and then to use those deposits for loans and to lend to the community as well as, provide financial literacy and sort of advice to the community on money matters. And so when you're putting your money in a bank, you have to ask yourself, what is that bank doing for my community? And in the case of black-owned banks, we do the right thing as it relates to our community. So for us, we're both, I went to Harvard Business School, I worked at Bank of America, I worked at American Express, but I was really looking for something that was actually giving back to the community where I was raised. And that's how I got into it.
So, I know that there are a lot of banks that are really following that trend on redlining. Can you speak to redlining in the black community?
Yeah. So redlining is what banks have done historically to sort of redline or put a red line around communities that they are not willing to lend to. And I think part of what's happened in banking is that there's sort of like a have and a have-not. The more wealthy communities like Wellesleys in Boston, or really think of the wealthy communities in any city, those communities are actually overbanked. There are a lot of banks in those communities, whereas the communities that don't have as much money have fewer banking options. And they see us as fee generators as opposed to wealth builders. So the services that they offer us are not sort of services that are going to help us build wealth, like for instance increasing home ownership or helping us to buy even multifamily property, which is income generating property. Instead, they offer us products and services like a prepaid debit card where we're having to pay to use our own money. So it really is our overdraft programs. That's another one where we're paying fees, to use our own money. So what we do at One United Bank is we come up with services that minimize our fees and also allow us to invest in real estate, whether it's first-time home buyer programs or whether it's our financing of affordable housing. So part of it is like thinking of banks and thinking like, how do they help our community grow? And in the case of One United, as well as really all the black-owned banks in the country, we are really focused on community development.
So give us three things that you think we should be doing in each one of our communities and how we can be the best that we can be in our own community?
Well, number one is the bank black. And I say that because it's really important that we not only move our money, but that we move our mind, that we change our mindset about doing business with black-owned institutions. So the first thing I say is move your money, because when you do that, you go through a portal where, it's sort of interesting. I say to people like, okay, you're going to realize that there are a lot of black-owned businesses out there that you weren't focused on before. So you need to go through that portal and start to say, wow, this is a whole group of institutions that I can do business with. The second thing is to really be purposeful about your money. Purposeful. So every dime you spend, to think about, is this a need or a want? Is there some way I can save more? Is there some way I can do business more with black-owned institutions? So that's the second thing, is to really be purposeful. Don't just go out and buy a cup of coffee and buy a new dress because it just happened to be something that you love when you got a million other black dresses in your closet. Right, exactly. But to really start to be purposeful with our money. And then the third thing that I think that, this is really, really important, is to recognize that we have to invest in appreciating assets. Things that are going to go up in value over time. We have a tendency to invest in things that go down in value, like new cars, as an example, or new clothes, as opposed to homes and stocks and bonds and all of those things. So the key is to start to shift our mindset to doing business with each other and to look at how we can invest in appreciating assets.
Thank you so much, Terry Williams, One United Bank. Girl, that is some really serious information. And I don't think that we all really think about what we should be doing, and we're not intentional. And we don't have the option anymore not to be intentional. You're listening to Keep It Moving with Marsha Jews and Terry Williams with One United Bank, the largest black bank in this country. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
Oh,
Okay.
no, take the air thing out your mouth. All right?
Yes, ma'am.
Say your name and title.
Myron Hardeman, Executive Director for Amy.
Hi, welcome to Keep It Moving with Marsha Jews. I am here with Myron Hardy, who is with Amy. And what is Amy?
Amy stands for Advancing Minorities' Interest in Engineering. Amy is a coalition of corporations, government agencies, and the accredited HBCU engineering schools. Our primary mission is to facilitate the development of partnerships between our member organizations on one or more of the HBCU engineering schools.
So how old is the organization?
Amy was incorporated in 1992, so we're 30.
That's a long time.
Yes. So we're coming up on our 30th year.
So when we look at Amy, when Amy started, and where we are now with science, technology, engineering, and math, how are those changes impacting the African American community?
Well, when Amy was when Amy was first incorporated, there were 9 accredited HBCU engineering schools. Today we have 15. Those 15 schools represent about 4% of all the engineering schools in the country, and yet they produce over 30% of all the African American engineers in this country on an annual basis. So they're just a great pool of minority engineering talent and resources for this country.
Why are you at the Congressional Black Caucus?
Well, one of the things is we feel it's important that we raise people's awareness of the opportunities and benefits and capabilities of the HBCU engineering schools. And we're trying to make inroads and inform congressional people as well as other individuals